本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Friday, August 28th, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 340. I'm your host, Austin Walker. Joining me today, Patrick Klepek.
Hello.
Ricardo Contreras.
Hello.
And Rob Zachney.
Good morning.
I just want to start today off with a message of solidarity and love and commiseration, honestly, to a whole lot of people. We are recording this on Thursday morning, just hours after Hurricane Laura made landfall in Louisiana and the whole Gulf Coast, after first hitting the Caribbean and taking lives in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. We are recording in the middle of a period of sustained and terrible wildfires throughout the western United States. And just a day after athletes across the country went on strike in solidarity after the police shooting of Jacob Blake brutally 7 times in the back in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which was then followed up by the killing of 2 protesters by the Blue Lives Matter advocate Kyle Rittenhouse, all while the Republican National Convention congregates to continue to celebrate an administration that is marching ever further towards fascism in the middle of a global pandemic. To say that there is a lot on our minds right now, I think, is an understatement. We hope that we can provide a bit of levity here today, but I don't necessarily want to think that this is just pure distraction or something that can justify putting our collective heads in the ground. So I just wanted to emphasize that we are here and we are paying attention, and we hope that you are too. We are doing our best to stay active and to stay hopeful, not with like empty optimism and just kind of like, oh, it'll work itself out. We'll get to the election and that'll fix everything. But with the courage, I hope to try to take some actions. I can't speak to anyone else here specifically, though. I mean, we were all talking about it yesterday, but I do think that my heart filled with a little bit of hope yesterday for at least a glimmer, a little moment of time when the Milwaukee Bucks, refused to take the court, and then their peers followed suit. I guess we should set that up a little bit so people know what the hell I'm talking about. I don't know. It was a big news story, right? People.
Yeah,
know
I feel like that. I feel like that kind of traded.
I hope so. So yeah, I that gave me a little bit of hope, and was like a great instance of people recognizing the power that they did have to draw attention to something and to make demands and to put on the leverage that they could. And I think that that's at least a small, reminder that people are out there working on this stuff and that we can be out there with them, Tough one.
I apologize. My plan sucked. Like, we were having a very solemn moment, but my plan to quiet the dog with a bully stick failed, and she was really, really noisily chewing on it.
Rob, how could you do this to me?
I'm trying to lure her away. She was in the path of the mic, so now, Mina, go.
In the path of the mic.
In the path of the mic.
Well, you know how it is. It picks up in a really
story.
It's directional.
Yeah.
It is
so
directional.
It was like we're having that conversation, and I'm watching my waveforms just increasingly get to like the noisy chewing and scraping.
Incredible.
And it didn't seem it was increasingly distracting.
God. Well,
In the path of the mic is my production company.
Oh,
write that down.
Nice. You write
That's
that
good.
down. The path of the mic. Wow.
Mic path.
God.
There's some good ones.
The path of the mic.
That's
the podcast we eventually do when we start a podcast network, and we've got Mike Francesca in our stable.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I think it has, like, while you were partying, I was studying the path of the mic energy.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the point. That's the point.
Oh, God. Unfortunately, I think we've revealed that we are not equipped for this modern age. Maybe we are.
Let's just move to a castle instead. That's what Jeff Gersman did. So I feel like
did
he's
he
on the
post
right,
about that publicly?
He's on the right path, so to speak.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
You didn't see the pictures?
I didn't see the pictures. The last picture I saw, we talked to Jeff privately, obviously, and I know that he's okay. But the last thing that I'd seen from his feed was him saying, "This might go down in his history as one of the craziest days I've ever had. had, ending it safely, protected by this new young friend, and it was a picture of like a fox.
Oh
my god! Oh my god!
Are you finding them now? Yes.
Yeah, he's in a castle. What is happening?
I don't know.
Where'd he get a burrito?
I don't know. The castle. He got a castle burrito.
That distinctly looks like it could be a microwave burrito.
That does look like a microwave burrito.
I don't mean to. I don't mean to make some assumptions about Jeff.
Like a little Dixie plate. Yeah, this is a great meal. I love this.
Very good.
Castle came equipped with magnums of Cutty Sark.
Yep. He's ready to go.
This is like hell.
It's got a nice view of the beach. You know, a lot of rocks.
I guess Cutty Sark is the most nautical themed whiskey.
It's true. God, thank you to the person who Jeff seems to have retweeted it. It looks like Jeff is captured in the fireplace in one of these images in the replies. It's worth scrolling down to see that. Fantastic. Yeah, I guess we could be in a castle. I guess that would be another thing we could do. God. Instead, we were playing video games. That's the thing is, I don't think this castle has video games, which really puts Jeff out of his element. Yeah. So, though I guess
so you just eat a burrito and have a Diet Pepsi.
Have a Diet Pepsi. That's what you got to do to center yourself sometimes. Anyway, yeah, we should dive into our stuff. Who wants to? We're just going to shout out the nicest thing of this week. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's where my happy place has been this week. And I'll knock it out and we can move on. Captain Tsubasa, Rise of New Champions, fucking sports anime video games, sports anime RPGs. This game fucking slaps. This game rules. I'm still very early into it, and so like I'm not like deep enough into talk about like high level strategy or if it develops. But the gist of this is that it is a soccer RPG. Based on the shonen sports anime that has been long running. I believe that Captain Tsubasa is like one of these like classic decades long running franchises.
Well, when I saw
1981, it started as a manga.
When I saw a trailer for this, and I was the trailer really struck me, and I was like, maybe even I would want to redeem this code. And I looked at my wife and said, I don't have the time. Yeah. But I was watching like a YouTube trailer, and like one of the first comments was like strong PS2 energy in this trailer.
It does. Listen, so
which meant as a compliment. Clearly,
I think that's true. So the thing to note is this is a soccer game in which you are playing as an up and coming middle school soccer ace. And when I say up and coming, I mean, listen, he's won the middle school championship twice in a row. He's
eighth grader.
He's like an eighth grader. Yeah, that's basically it.
I guess maybe the structure could be different.
I don't know what the Japanese. Yeah, I don't know what the Japanese like school structure is. I believe the manga starts when he's old or when he's younger. The manga starts when he is like a child. And the anime must start there too, because there are stuff where there is like flashback videos that you can optionally watch that include his story up until now and like introduce you to the game does a good job of introducing you to all the characters, but if you're like, listen, if you want to know about the first time that you met this person, you can watch this little like motion comic version of the anime. And the only reason I make this, the only reason I bring this up is I need to emphasize that I'm just going to read from the Wikipedia about what this kid's history is.
Please.
Tsubasa Ozora is an 11-year-old elementary school student who's deeply in love. By the time you play the game, he's more like 16 or something. Who is deeply in love with football and dreams of one day winning the FIFA World Cup for Japan. He lives together with his mother in Japan while his father is a seafaring captain who travels around the world. Tsubasa is known as the Soccer no Moshigo, which translates to heaven-sent child of football. When he was only barely a year old, he was almost run over by a rushing bus while playing with a ball. However, Tsubasa held the ball in front of him, which served as a cushion for most of the impact. The force of the bump blew him away, but he was able to right himself with the ball. Hence, Tsubasa's motto is, "The ball is my friend." Ever since he was little, he always went out with the ball.
That's the takeaway?
That's the takeaway. He's this just like incredible ace captain. This is the most what if Michael Jordan was a middle schooler and also was not looking to cook up reasons to hate people and drive his...
Well, he hasn't realized his full potential yet, so you don't have the chip on your shoulder.
Maybe there's like a dark Tsubasa arc where he starts inventing reasons to hate people. I guess what I will say is, out the gate, it is a little weird playing as the superstar athlete Super Ace, because the first thing that happens is you're going to the regional tournaments, which if you win, you will go on to the national tournaments. And your rivals in the regionals are a group of students you used to play with in elementary school who you left behind because you're so much better than them. Not because they went to a different team. And let me tell you, spoilers.
You went to the travel team.
Basically. And they went to a shittier team, but they've gotten better. They've dedicated themselves to not being in your shadow. They're going to put you away. They're they show up at your school. And a lot of this is presented in kind of an RPG visual novel back and forth. I mean, these conversations are animated. It is like anime style. It is like 3D anime style cutscenes, right? So these kids show up and take the ball from you during your practice. I bet we can fucking take the ball off you. And 4 of them take the ball off you, but it's there's 4 on 1. Come on. It's not really fair. And they clearly have a chip on their shoulders. And eventually you go and you play against them. And the way that the game works is it's like a PS2 soccer game in the sense that it doesn't have a lot of loose ball physics like a contemporary FIFA or Pro Evo game does. It doesn't have many of the advancements that a soccer game has made in the last 15 years, let's say. But instead what it has is a really kind of a really compelling loop that is you're just trying to get past the defense through a combination of passes, through passes, lobs, and then variations on dodges. There's an R1 to sort of sprint that stays away from them, and then an R2 that if you time right, you can dodge out of any sort of defensive push or slide tackle. So it's it's almost not a rhythm game, but you're timing your dodge to those attacks, to those defensive pushes. And every time you do that, you get a boost based on what your character's stats are that might increase your shooting accuracy or increase the power that your shots do or make you even more maneuverable. And in a very, beautiful anime-like way, the word comes up on the screen is boom, that's right, you're the goal chaser or whatever. And eventually you get to the goalie and you swing and you take your shot. And when you take your shot, the thing is, the goalie's going to block it because the goalie has a life bar or a stamina bar or something.
That's great.
And
that's great.
Different power levels of shots will take that life bar down until it's low enough that the next shot will break the goalie and go into the net. And certain characters on your team have different types of super shots, which take longer times to charge up, unless you've activated your super mode, obviously, in which case everyone charges up their team-wide super mode that you earn by having good play throughout the game. And then you get awesome, again, shonen anime style, huge. It's like Dragon Ball Z. If Dragon Ball Z was about soccer, someone has a banana shot that makes it so that the ball spins really rapidly, rotates really rapidly and stretches out and has a yellow-green glow to it. And it has a curve that makes it harder for the goalie to get to. Other people have another guy on my team has the bullet shot where it just becomes incredibly dense and hard and just shoves the goalie back into the net if you get it at the right goalie health. It's just incredibly, it's just good. There's another story mode that I haven't started yet where you create your own character, I believe, and go through as at the nationals level. Eventually the game opens with Tsubasa being all right, this is it. We're going up against Germany. We're going up against the elitist prick who is my rival from Germany, who's gone to all of the best schools and who thinks that Japan doesn't belong on the world stage of soccer. Cause that is the underlying thing here is is it patriotism? Is it nationalism? Who could say? But Japan demands to be on the international
and he's
soccer
just a
stage.
kid. So,
let me tell you, he's just a kid, but he's surrounded by coaches. He's surrounded by people who want to invest in the Japanese soccer. Yeah, 100%. His coach's dream is for Japan to enter the world stage of soccer. That doesn't come from nothing. You know what I mean? And Tsubasa gets that. There's another.
So the cutest Abe is obvious.
Listen, I'm not deep enough in to make that claim, but I am. And also this predates Abe, obviously. Again, this is a 40-year long series. But I'm saying anytime that your goal is, we're going to show those other countries. And again, that's me as an American speaking with very specific American relationships to that specific thing.
I think it is the FIFA World Cup is such a,
yes,
I mean, shit, yes. I don't care about soccer. I get into soccer.
Yes.
Every, how many years is it for? Is it longer? Is it a longer?
It's 4.
Cycle?
It's 4.
It's 4.
like I get into it when it's around. I'm like, yeah, go America. What? Our team sucks? Okay. Well, women's soccer, that's the real game of skill.
Those are the real Americans.
That's me too. So I totally get you are bombarded, whoever you are bombarded by this fucking game.
And also sports is like rooted in regionalism, like pitting regions against. It's just a matter of like, is that like friendly and fun, or is that
and this feels friendly and
propagandistic?
Fun. So the end of that first arc where you go up against your rivals who used to be your friends, you beat them, and Tsubasa is obviously like, you guys pushed me for the first time in a long time. No one's challenged me like that in a long time. And they're like, we'll be back next year to beat you. And he's like, making a promise, but to do it, I'm gonna need something from you. And they're like, what's that? And he's like, I need you to root for me when we go to nationals. And they're like, that's right. Our region is going to win nationals. We're on your side now. And it's that style of thing. And I'm sure that by the end, that is the arc, right? It's like we're all brought together by our love of football. We're all brought together by our love of the beautiful game. However, there's absolutely a Cobra Kai motherfucker coach that is like the former coach of your main rival, who is like, you're like the suave ace who can move the ball really well. And then there's another player who is just a power player. Patrick, the video that you linked in the chat has that player just fucking go off in the second half. There's like they made like a 7-minute video. Just, here's what a match looks like. And the last like 3 minutes of that match are just this dude getting the ball and blowing through everybody and then just knocking the ball in the net from forever away. And he previously worked with a dude who was just like win at any cost. And there's a moment in the game where you go to his perspective, not to play as, but just to see what's going on with him as his team is trying to get into the nationals. And he's playing against someone who has a heart condition, who at the beginning of the segment, they're like, he's only allowed to play for 20 minutes at a time. And the dude's heart goes out in the middle of play. And for a moment, your rival like stops and is like, oh my God, holy shit. Like, should I keep playing? And they do keep playing and they end up winning. But his coach comes later and his coach is like, I saw the weakness in you. I saw that you stopped when the other team's ace fell to the ground. You should take every advantage. You should have, even if he died on the field, you should have used that as an opportunity to score. Jesus. And I was like, yo, okay, this game is not, because, the FIFA game would never have the coach say that because they have to protect soccer. But this game that's about middle school fictional soccer gets to have the shitty coaches, the injury stories, all of that shit gets to be there because it's part of the drama of the game, which here's my new thesis after playing like 2.5 hours of this game. This is the most honest game about sports there is. Children are indoctrinated with nationalistic values. Injuries.
Well, children's sports is arguably the bigger cesspool, right? Because
absolutely.
Like, when your professional athletes have a certain standard of like, oh, you think you can talk to me that way? No, sorry, that's not going to fly. But my God, if you're a striving early teenager or something,
how many T-shirts has Tsubasa sold? That motherfucker ain't gonna cut. I know that kid's not getting money from his middle school. I know it.
Quick question.
Yeah.
2 things.
Yes.
One. So once the goalie's busted down, is it just like a wide open net?
No,
or you still have to make like
you have to get the final shot. But it's not. I cannot imagine missing a shot in this game that isn't.
Okay.
I mean, I've missed a few shots. I guess I've missed a few shots, but it doesn't do the thing. Okay, you know how in soccer games you hold down the square button to take a shot, and because you haven't played a soccer game in 4.5 years, you always go over the net because you hold the square button down for too long? This doesn't do that. This is how powerful is your shot, motherfucker? Are you going to put it in the back? Are you going to drill it in the back of the net, or are you going to tap it into the back of the net? So it does not have that physics-based, like, I'm going to play with the ball as if it's a real object.
You're not trying to fake out the goalie where it's like...
I still play that way, but I don't know if that matters. It doesn't seem like...
But you're performing soccer.
I'm performing soccer the way... Yeah, exactly. And the tackling gameplay is fun. The like closing in on someone is fun. And it really... The thing that this does is... And also after you score a goal, the goalie gets health back, right? Gets the stamina meter back. And also everyone else is also managing stamina, which you need to dodge and you need to tackle and all that stuff. So there is like a lot of management happening in that way. I'm so early yet that I don't even really know what the capabilities of some of my team members are. And my suspicion is the other mode, which has the create a character stuff, is the mode in which I would care more about what my team is. They were like, listen, save that mode until you've played a little bit of the basic Tsubasa model first. Get your feet under you. Then go play this other mode, which I'm going to do like soon. I'm just like, all right, I get it. Tsubasa becomes a big deal. Let me now create my own character and see if I can raise to the ranks. Also, the character you create defaults to the number 23. So that's, I'm just saying, they know.
In between games, is there a slice of life aspect to this? Is there hanging out is there clubhouse
that
politics?
Stuff is all just
vibes?
There's vibes, but that stuff is all just background. Like that's just like linear story.
But the game is on the pitch.
The game is on the pitch. I'm not making, you can make management decisions about player placement, who's in what position, who's your corner kick, who's doing your place kicks, stuff like that, right? But you're not doing, I'm not going to hang out. It's not Persona. Do you know what I mean? I'm not like, I would love that game. And maybe if this game does well enough, that would be fantastic. But this has been my small joy this week, has been Captain Tsubasa, Rise of New Champions. And who knows, like maybe by hour 6, I'm like, okay, this doesn't
the charms warm off and you're in like the 16th soccer match.
Exactly. But right now.
And then you're like, bring back Mega Man Soccer, the one true soccer video game.
I also like Mario Strikers. I think Super Mario Strikers is a pretty good game.
I played a lot of Mega Man Soccer when I was a kid.
But like, I think that the thing to emphasize here for me is the thing that this game has been doing well is, despite not being a sim in any way, creating the feeling of both sports anime, but also the great thing about soccer where you feel the build before a goal comes in, where you feel that like, oh shit, we're wearing down the goalie, we're wearing down the defense, we're gonna break through any moment now. And you would think that would feel mechanistic because of the way in which everything is just stamina bars. But the way that the characters interact and the way that each match has a sort of gimmick to it because of the way the other team plays, there is it still feels sort of organic, or at least feels narrative-y in a way that I like. Narrative-y is a real word. Mm-hmm. An example of that is the second or third match I played was against a team where their lead person was known as the ace killer because he was just a really strong defensive player who kept me locked down, right? And that meant that I had to rely on the rest of my team I had to like pass the ball to worse players who didn't have the stamina that Tsubasa has in order to drive down the field and get shots on goal. Tsubasa is just better than them. He just has more stamina. He's better at dodging. He's better at getting through defense. And so with him locked down, which they do the thing that like Dragon Ball Fighter, in Dragon Ball Fighter Z, where if you recreate certain conditions of the anime, you'll get a special cutscene when you like win a match. Mm-hmm. That does this when you hit certain points on the field. So like every time I passed to Tsubasa to drive down the middle, not every time, but over and over, he would get caught by this dude's special slide tackle, the razor tackle, which would like drop his stamina to nothing and make it recharge very slowly. And that's like a really fun way of communicating what's actually happening there. There was another player, in another match, whose whole thing was like he was trying to become a better striker on the field and trying to develop a new attack, like a new special super shot that would really hurt my goalie stamina. My goalie sucks, by the way. Your starting goalie is just miserable, just terrible. But he doesn't have it at first. But every time he gets a shot on goal, he gets closer and closer. And there's a cutscene of him being like, I almost have it. They say I can't do the special Falcon kick, but I think I can do it. And it's basically like a reaction. It's like a one-timer, right? Like if you let his teammates pass him the ball with a lob or a through pass from midfield to an attacking position, he will then try to hit that shot. And after the third time he does it, he gets it, which means that like you just cannot let him take shots on goal anymore because he will beat your goalie. And that's cool as shit. Like that to me is more of a story mode than some of the stuff I've played in big budget sports games, because it's playing with narrative. Like it's obviously a storyline. It's a storyline almost in the wrestling sense, where it's like, oh shit, they're really working. Bret Hart is really working Shawn Michaels' legs, because that way when he puts him in the sharpshooter, he'll really feel it. But that stuff is fun, and does happen in sports, but in video games it often doesn't happen because the simulation can't do that stuff in the same way. And so I don't know. I'm really enjoying it. I'm playing it on PS4. I think it's also out on Switch, and I want to say PC maybe also, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, that's a hearty recommendation for Captain Tsubasa: Rise of a New Champions.
I'm glad it's good because the trailer was great, and I was like, "Wow, there's a good chance this is just a good trailer, and this is miserable to play."
Well, and to some degree, the other thing there is, like, this is a long-running series that never really made it in the States. It's huge in Europe, unsurprisingly, but it just like never, as far as I know, it never had like a run on Cartoon Network. It never really had that like moment. And so I'm hoping it's like a thing that let me know if you've seen the show or read this manga, if it's like worth doing those things, because first impression, pretty good.
Atlas, make a sports game.
Atlas, make a sports game, please. That'd be sick. Who else is playing something that they're like happy about? I would love to hear something that people are positive on right now. The quiet takes the room.
I mean, I'm nothing but happy.
Okay.
All right, go, Rob.
Rob, talk to me.
Okay. So I've been playing Mafia Definitive Edition. They gave us a preview build of the remaster of the original Mafia. Which, how familiar are y'all with that particular game?
I'm familiar with a lot of like PC Gamer covers back when that game was like the biggest fucking deal in the world, because it was like GTA's coming to PC.
I played it. I played it when it came out all the way through.
Okay, great. So, you remember how utterly fucked the difficulty levels were in that game, right? Where it's like, you would just be playing it. It was pretty easy, and then you would hit certain missions, and it would be impossible. So, like, I think my memory of Mafia, and you can tell me if you agree with this, is like there were a lot of cool things in that game. It had, for even at the like by the standards of the time, it was phenomenal. Now it's a little more conventional, but by the standards of the time, it had a very effective like storyline and delivery of that story as like a mafia 1930s like Prohibition era mafia like crime drama. And to access that, you had to play a fairly janky isn't quite the right word. It was janky in places. Yeah. In other places, it was pretty effective. But you played an open world action game where you play Tommy Angelone. Angelo. Is that it?
Angelo. I think it's Angelo. I think.
Yeah, in the city of lost heaven, because sinners, saints.
Oh,
saints,
right. Yeah. Classic thing that people would name a city.
Yeah,
Lost Heaven, America.
Sometimes, I mean, you look at Los Angeles though, and the history of that place, and it is like people got together and were like, let's build a metaphor.
Yeah, fair.
So anyway. I would say the original Mafia became kind of beloved by people who managed to get through it. I wanted to love it, but I couldn't, because while I enjoyed the stuff where it's like you're taking part in this crime drama and it's playing to all the tropes that I hold so dear, the fact that like failing missions caused you to replay like huge swaths of them.
I remember some driving missions specifically where you would do like a 15-minute like tracking someone or chase or whatever it was, and the cars took damage and would just break down, and there were a number of times that I would just not lose progress, but have to redo something that was not the interesting part of the game. That was one of those games that took me a year to beat, because I kept hitting points where I was like, I can't win this gunfight. This is an annoying race or a tail mission or whatever. I'll come back to this. And I did, and eventually I did beat it. And I remember thinking that it was like a really satisfying conclusion, but that it was not. Also, I don't remember the world being good. I don't remember there being things to do.
No, there was nothing to do.
Okay.
And that's the thing, right? It was one of those, now we have an idea of what an open world game is expected to do, which is you have a big world, and then there's shit in it you go find and you can do. There's side missions, and then you drive to main quests. And I hesitate to say it's like a primitive approach to open world games, because I think a lot of the way open world games have developed has just been bloat, more for more's sake, but not really like and like a progress toward an improved version of that idea. When I think of GTA 4, for instance, when I think of my favorite moments, it's not like going out and doing activities. Like my favorite moments were still where Liberty City was just a backdrop to like the mood of the story, right? Like I remember going to the Heat style gunfight where you're going with those Irish gangsters. We're driving across the bridge and 1979 comes on the radio. I was like, I'm in it. This is great.
Going down into the subway in that mission, like after you have with the bag over your shoulder. That game has so many issues. That specific mission is so strong. Well, I think the thing that you bring to mind here is about utilization almost more than whether it's developed or primitive, quote unquote. Because at the time, I think the thing that people said was there's not a lot to do here. This isn't as good as GTA. In GTA, I can go drive a cab. In GTA, I can go deliver pizzas or can do side missions or whatever. And this game doesn't do that. But when you take the idea of, and the thing is, we've now, like you said, we've seen the extension of that logic of like, oh, just put more stuff in it. If you have an open world, you should utilize it by making there be a bunch of stuff to do. But utilization does not only look like that. You can also utilize the open world really well in linear content if what you're doing is, like you said, using it as an evocative backdrop, making it feel big and labyrinthine. Like there's all sorts of ways to use it. And at the end of the day, I think what we now understand it to do is to judge the way it's used in a broader sense. Because to put a critic from 2002 or 3 or whenever that game came out would think that the best possible version of this is what the Ubisoft model ended up being, which makes GTA 4 look subtle and quiet in comparison to the degree of bloat that so many open world games have now, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of the weird thing is I think almost Ubisoft directly is probably responsible for hardening our idea of what a open world game like ought to be, because they make so many of them to this really specific template. When I think back to GTA 4, it wasn't even really pointing in that direction. Like even GTA, where they're starting moving that life sim direction a little bit in 4 as opposed to the previous games, even there, they're not really pushing in the the city's just like an activity. Like it's a busy box that you go to the icons and do shit. But Mafia is really sparse. And I would say now, when you talk about the open world can be there to enhance the linear gameplay and sort of change the quality of it. I think Mafia Definitive Edition delivers on that and gets it. Like it gets what was cool about the original game a little bit, which is a lot of it is about just kind of soaking up the atmosphere of the story and hanging out with these characters as you sort of drive through a period appropriate backdrop. In 2002, the cars kind of put you in the place where it's like they were kind of clunky and they're Model T inspired. They're kind of crap. But it kind of put you there and then. The city was pretty sparse. Now it very much looks like it's a Hangar 13 game now at this point, right? Where it's like, it looks like it's sort of on a visual par or better than Mafia 3. And so the just aesthetic quality of this game where you're driving around the city is now much, much higher and has much higher. There's a great deal more atmosphere to it in places where, like now, as you're driving on your way to do some sort of collect protection money, to make your rounds on the rackets. Now it feels like much more so you are a low level wise guy driving around 1930s America. To these, tiny mom and pop shops in various like ethnic neighborhoods in a U.S. city.
This is really pretty. I'm finally looking at gameplay. I haven't looked at any gameplay video of this remake because I think I was a little not confused, but I knew they just called it the Definitive Trilogy or something when they first announced that they were doing this. And I didn't realize the degree to which this was not just a remaster in the way we talk about we don't need to reopen and relitigate this, but this is like a remake. This is like all new assets, all new everything, right?
Yeah, but not a remake. Because all the shit you remember being a little bit fucked up is still there. So like the build they gave us, it's like the first 4 missions, and then there's a jump to a mid-game mission. But in the first 4 missions, there is a mission where you have to sabotage. Okay, here's the setup. It's good because this is Mafia. Mafia on the one hand wants to be like it's the Godfather.
Yes,
you know it's the
it's specifically it's specifically the flashback Godfather 2 stuff, right? Like it's specifically setting up a crime family in 1930s America before the way things are the way they are, right? Pre-war America.
And it's trying to do that, but also Mafia is like, but we're also a video game, and we don't have that many verbs, so we need to give you cool things to do with the mechanics we already have. So you can drive cars. Well, what if you can race cars? So here's the setup. You are called in because you're one of the best drivers in the mob. You start as the game starts out, you're a cabbie, and your last day as a cabbie is just a day where you're driving around just the worst shitheads who are stiffing you on fares and talking about like how much they hate. Boy, this is unexpected resonance. You're driving someone around early in the game, and he starts talking about like the Hoovervilles that are popping up, and he's like, those people just need to get fucking jobs. There's always work if you're willing to work. And your cabbie is like, I don't think it's that easy, man. And the guy's like, I'm in business, believe me, I know it's that easy. Like it's just you gotta be willing to put in the effort and give it a shot. And so that's the last day Tommy has as a cabbie, and after that, he's like, sign me the fuck up for the mob.
Yeah, well, after that, he starts working, is what you're telling me,
Yeah. But, so the Don calls you in, and he's like, oh man, we got a big problem here. So there was this guy, and he got into trouble with one of our loan sharks and etc. And he'd spent all the money on cars. But it turns out he was a really good driver, and he's become like our golden child, and he's a great race driver. But now the Morello family has brought in a ringer from Europe with a European race car.
Right.
And they're fixing to win the big race. And Tommy, the entire community will be destroyed if we lose the big race. Because this is how sports
community
books work.
Center? No, the mob built that community center.
So the mob, taking care of the people of like this part of town, told everyone, get in on backing our boy. Like put all your money on the mob-backed race car driver because he's the best. He's going to win this thing. And then the ringer comes in, and they're going to lose. And he's like, if we lose this race, it's going to devastate the community. Like people, it's going to be worse than the crash because that's how many people have plowed their money into this. Now, again, I don't think this is how sportsbooks work.
No, I don't think so.
Like if the betting is that lopsided,
odds change. That's not how it works.
Yeah. Nevertheless, people are like just have sunk all their money into this. And he's like, so here's what we need you to do. We need you to sabotage the fancy schmancy sports car.
Gotcha.
And so you go and you steal the sports car. You race it across the city to a mechanic who sabotages it. Then you have to drive it back, and it drives like a piece of crap now, which is kind of funny. But then the next day, you go to the big race, and you're going to hang out and watch your guy win.
Yeah.
Oh no, Morella's goons busted his legs. He can't drive.
Shit.
Yeah.
Who could have seen it coming?
So, Tommy, you're such a good driver.
You used to be a cabbie, Tommy.
Just like racing. Yeah. So Tommy, you got to race the car. And Tommy's like, all right, cool. So now you have to win the race. And I remembered this. I was like, oh,
Dude, this is the mission. This is the mission that I fucking stopped at. I just like, this is a flooding back.
It's a showstopper. Yeah. Because now you go into a race, and it's a 3-lap race across a pretty long course.
Yeah, like, it's a long fucking, this is not like an oval ring. This is like countryside racing. You're out on Long Island or something.
Yeah, it's wild that like this is in the game. But you have to win the race. You have to win the race, and it's hard. And if you remember, I want to say the PC game didn't control well with I want to say you had to control maybe arrow keys. Julian Benson wrote about this over at Lad Bible for Mike Diver a little bit, and he remembered things that I'd forgotten. He was like, "Yeah, no, there was no controller support in the original PC version." Right. So I'm like, "How did anyone do this?" But even today, it's still hard. It is still impossible. Like you can get it does the usual video game thing where there's 16 people in the race. You're one of them. About a dozen of the AI drivers aren't shit. And then the last, like, the top 2 or 3, like, can really put some distance on the field. So you can finish lap 1 and you're basically fucked. And you're just like, I need to restart this and do it all over again. Fortunately, now there's dynamic difficulty. And you can just change to easy mid-mission or, like, on reloading a checkpoint. And suddenly everyone's just way slower. And after a few tries of like trying to get through that mission, I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to go to easy. Because I remember hating this. I still hate it. Even though the driving feels okay, the race is kind of cool, it's just not well balanced. So you can just change it and breeze through it and it's fine. But it is, the reason I was playing on a harder difficulty than I could really manage is because for a lot of the combat, hard's pretty good. Like the shooting feels way more interesting. The combat feels more interesting on a higher difficulty because now you actually do need to be thinking about the environment a little bit. But then you hit these like really scripted sequences where it just becomes a nightmare to play through.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like it's got the bad things about Mafia, but basically they've given you the tools now to just be like, look, this we both know this sucks, right? So just get through this mission and move on.
I'm also just of mixed mind about whether or not it should or shouldn't have the bad things about Mafia. Like, you know, I get the value proposition of like I want to buy a game that is better. Like I get the it's almost like the Resident Evil 2 remake argument. I'm not saying that RE2 remake is better than the original Resident Evil 2 necessarily, but what I am saying is that was a game that was made with contemporary tastes in mind. And I get the idea, like, let's overhaul this to just make it fit with what people want from a game like this. But there is part of me still, and I think I said this about RE2, that's like, I would just love a version of that game that you can play exactly as it was with the there's an honesty in keeping the faults there. Like when you get a new print of a classic film, like it doesn't stop the bad pacing in Act 2. You know, like maybe it's a better transfer or whatever. But there is some part of me, and I know that it's like
Do people want honesty though? I feel like that's us saying that, and the general public would go, absolutely not. Give me the updated mechanics, please.
I think you're totally right about what the wide audience wants. But part of
Shadow of the Colossus, right, was like a unique argument in which like part of it was, the aesthetic changes is actually changing the thing. And people didn't really have a problem with some of these subtle mechanical changes because there was more of a broader agreement that the finickiness of that game was like okay to fix. But it was like, when you change the way the lighting works, you're affecting what to me is, I'm speaking broadly about the response from fans of like, that's the heart of the game more than like how the platforming feels.
Right, totally. Which is, I think that speaks to something that even we, whose careers have been talking and writing about video games, still struggle with because art is complex and video games are especially complex. It is tough to know why we like a thing sometimes. Like it is tough to know what part of the pudding is the part you love. And pudding is a really
or the
bad
thing
analogy.
In the moment, right? Like this is why I was. And recently now I've said a second time, I might just be the thing that I do every year now, but just because I think it's an interesting exercise of like rearranging your top 10 list a year later, because I think that speaks to like, until you have like distance and time, it is difficult. Like you may not be able to pull it apart, but I feel like distance and time gives you a better sense of what you did or didn't like about a thing than it is in the moment where, I don't know, any number of things can affect why you responded to a particular piece of
Didn't
art.
I get dragged on this podcast for saying something like that like 3 years ago? I feel like
I dragged you.
What?
Yes, because I don't feel that way. But Patrick was on you. Patrick was on your side then.
Okay, so Patrick has joined.
About what? About what's
distance, the importance of distance. I was talking 3 or 4 years ago.
I think both of them are important. Like I think it is just as true to have the reaction in the moment than it is to true later. those are two different reactions that
Classic
are
Patrick.
worth examining.
Really walking down the center.
Fuck off. Delete that. I'm going to delete that code I'm supposed to give you after this podcast.
Oh no!
To the thing about like not knowing, like it can be hard to parse why you like a thing. I think Mafia is kind of your quintessential version of that because like there were things at the time that I was like, this sucks. There's things now even that I'm like, this is kind of hokey.
Right.
But the hokiness gives it a quality that other games now do not have. Like there's an earnestness to
it's that
the
PS2 quality. It really is.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place, man.
It's just strong 1998 energy.
I think they retained all the voice acting because it's kind of clunky in the ways I remember it being. And Tommy sounds.
I'm into that. I think that's
Me
great because that would
too.
have seemed like such an obvious thing to switch and not doing that.
Patrick,
I would almost be curious.
Patrick, people keep accidentally overshooting on the Chicago accents. In a way
that's great. That's great.
I love it. I love it. I mean,
but I just mean like that's such an interesting to spend so much time overhauling the aesthetic and then to not do that because it's arguably, it's not that those people are like bad voice actors, but how we even record voice acting, like the where that is on the value, the value system of like making a game. Like you would think it's such an interesting creative choice to say no to that. But yes to high quality models and 4K textures and all that stuff.
I mean, go ahead.
No, but I think it works in this case because I think the weird thing now Mafia Definitive Edition pulls off is that now it very much looks like what I think it always wanted to be,
right? Which
was a video game version of gangster films. And one of the things about gangster films is oftentimes they are just like car and fashion porn, right? It's just like a movie set in 1932 will have a shocking amount of cars from 1932 or 1931 like in it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, because period pieces tend to overemphasize the present of whatever that contemporary reality was and tend to underplay how much of the past lingered on into that era.
This is like the classic thing of like the beginning of the 90s were still the 80s. And no one, and likewise for the beginning of any decade, when you make the sort of nostalgia piece, you're really synthesizing a lot from what were fundamentally pretty different moments in time. Like late 1979, early 1980, and late 1989 were very different times, basically everywhere in the world, because there had been a decade of very particular cultural and political program put into place, and so the idea that like you can summarize all of that stuff and make hard cuts is like dishonest about the way you represent a time and a place, or if maybe not dishonest in the I have a goal in my dishonesty besides the sort of nostalgic, like you said, like there's a fetishistic desire to see this very pristine version of what is there. And for me, the best stuff is the stuff that acknowledges and incorporates that bleed from era to era.
But I think in this game, it does end up channeling. Now it looks like, they got all, it looks like the way movies, they like basically rented out every vintage car and replica they could and like just packed it out on the streets. Now it looks like that. It has that quality and it looks good. It pulls off now what I think it always wanted to do, which is you are now the character in one of these gangster films. You're not a character in The Godfather because it's not good enough to be The Godfather. It's a shooter, right? There's no like, there's like one scene where where Michael like kills somebody, right? Yeah. That's basically it. This is what if Mafia? What if Mafia, you calling him Mafia Corleone?
Well, that would be the less subtle remake.
I never wanted this for you. Despite your name, I always dreamed of better things for you, Mafia.
Mafia, Corleone.
Yeah, write that down. Erase what I said before.
Got it.
Mafia, Corleone. Jesus.
Have you ever looked up gameplay videos for the Godfather video game?
I played the Godfather video game 1 and 2 to completion.
They had like a strategy layer, right?
Wait.
Yeah,
hold on. You played them?
I played both of them to completion. Absolutely.
Why?
Because I love The Godfather and I love video games. Godfather 2. Like what is
Rob, I'm just pasting you a gameplay clip please.
Godfather 2, both of those games are the same thing. Like, that's exactly the thing. So Godfather 2 specific, so both of them have the strategy layer, but Godfather 2 was doing, did you play Fable? Y'all played Fable 2? There's like a real estate element.
Yeah.
Godfather 2 also had that, and had the thing of like, you're waiting on real-time returns from your investments over the course of real days and hours. And so like, I would absolutely like buy, also Godfather 2 took place in Miami in the, I guess it was in the 50s. And like that game, these are bad games. Sorry. These are not good Godfather games. But I think that they do a lot of what Rob is saying about Mafia here, right? Which is like, there is a sort of pastiche that it's going for. And if you can accept that it's not going to do anything like The Godfather, then you're going to have an okay time.
All right, please click on the link that I deleted the original one. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Shoot, it clipped it at the wrong part.
Okay,
hold on. Let me read.
I will say right now, before I even click this link, the worst thing about both of these games is any time that they write your character into the Godfather story, like,
right, because you're just a side. You're always like a side.
You're
character,
like
right?
the bruiser. You're like the best. You're like the best soldier they have. Do you know what I mean?
I need flowers for Apollonia. Give me some flowers for Apollonia.
Yeah, no, you're like the Bodhi. Like, you are basically the Bodhi from The Wire of the Corleone crime family. All right, I'm gonna hit play on this. What is okay? This is minutes.
Just watch. This is just it's a beautiful moment. Thanks to the YouTube comment that pointed it out.
Okay,
thanks,
Almog, police car with a big old stick of dynamite,
putting it behind a truck,
walking away.
Wait, what's
just trying to look cool?
Beard.
Wow, that's a very effective. Oh my god!
Whoa.
You remember the part in The Godfather where like 4 cars blow up, right?
Did a chain reaction?
Yeah.
You remember when Michael Bay directed The Godfather and he was walking away and
God. I mean, listen, there's that's the thing. I think that's what both of those games.
The way he's getting shot 9 times.
Why is Stone Cold the fucking hitman for the Corleone family?
The guy we're looking at does look like Stone Cold Steve Austin in a fedora, but what I need you to know is he's very loyal to the family. He has priorities in the right place.
He has a lot of health. He can take a lot of bullets.
Oh yeah.
I definitely went to a Godfather like preview event.
That was like the age of those, right? Yeah. For sure. I feel like that there is. I feel like a critical reevaluation of The Godfather 2 specifically. Maybe The Godfather 2 Black Hands Edition on the Wii, because that's the one where you could choke people with your hands using the Wii.
Just as Nintendo dreamed.
Yeah, just
well, Manhunt also came to the Wii, right? And had similar like murder sim.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, 100%. About that game, Miyamoto said he thought after the game you should be forced to visit everyone you hurt in the hospital and place a pillow over their face and pop them one.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, The Godfather 2 had like a character recruitment system where you got like, I don't know if they were proc gen or not, but you got like a crew that ran with you and had different specialties. Like you had your safe cracker, you had your dude who could like open up, crowbar things open. These are just 2 different people who can open things. I kind of focused in on this one. That's what you're mostly doing as a mobster. Really quick to go back to the remake discourse. One of the things I wanted to add is like sometimes when you're doing a remake, and Patrick, you hit on this a little bit with like the voice acting technique stuff. I think it's easy to not understand how much new techniques and like protocol can completely change the feeling of a game. The thing that comes to mind that I think would result in this is, have y'all heard the quote about what happened with the Elder Scrolls Oblivion voice acting? Do you know about how they did that and why that game sounds the way it does?
Oh, this was a tweet recently, right?
Yeah, I have the full thing here. This is from an interview with I need this person's first name, Lampert. Mark Lampert, who was
from a no-clip documentary.
I think that's true. Yeah, it was from Danny's no-clip documentary on the music and soundscapes of Bethesda RPGs. Danny O'Dwyer. I shouldn't just say Danny, like people just know, like Danny.
Hey,
Danny.
Danny Pictures.
Danny Mafia Corleone. Danny, classic Italian name. There's also a picture I have somewhere, like a little behind the scenes making of sort of thing, and it's a shot of a script which I'd probably just come from Kinko's like 3 a.m. to print and put into binders and all this kind of thing. And we didn't have a good way to, at the time, to sort by these lines go good with this quest, these lines go with this quest. But in that picture with the script, if you look at it closely, you'll notice that the lines are all alphabetically sorted. It was one of those things that I just didn't think of at the time while putting the scripts together, which means that no one in all of Oblivion knew any context for any of the lines they were reading. Thank you, Mina.
Mad
at that. Marks.
Yeah. It's a wonder that they didn't lose their minds because it starts off with all A sentences. And wait until you get to the hellos and the highs. There's pages like, hi, how are you? Hi, hello, hi, how, all while trying to maintain the character that they're supposed to fight. That is like bananas. And if you remade Oblivion today, that just wouldn't be the case because there have been developments in the way in which people do voice acting. And I promise you, the outcome would be different because the process changed. And I'm so curious about something like Mafia where like there must be dozens of those things around art assets, I saw that they did new motion capture for that game, basically. And like, I'm sure that changes the character of the thing to some degree. And I'm sure there's lots of decisions that go into how much of that do we want to keep? How much of that do we want to change up? And I don't know, it's fascinating. So,
I will say too, so the last thing you do in the game is you go on, sort of your classic, it's a milk run gone bad type thing. And you're going to like a smuggler's like transit point where you're doing the handoff with Canadian whiskey at this farm.
Right.
And man, this game does like harsh, stark, like arc lighting and like rain really well. Like its night scenes are really sensational. And it's kind of the best and worst of this game is you start out with having a good conversation with Paulie. It's Paulie. He's the kind of the Joe Pesci, violent dude, but he's also kind of vulnerable and sad in a weird way. But you sort of see that he is starting to maybe resent a little bit that like, Tommy Angelo is the player character. He's competent at everything. Paulie is definitely Goofus to Tommy's Gallant. But right. You go there and it's like the people you're supposed to meet are not there. And you go through this farm and it's eerily abandoned. Clearly, like things are going to go bad. And it's like steadily mounting tension. And then when like you finally get in the shootout, it feels pretty good, right? Like it definitely feels like there's a moment where I like rounded the corner in this like abandoned stable and come face to face with like a couple cops. Mm-hmm. And immediately I was like, oh, this is why the Tommy gun was like the king of this era, because I just sort of react and like just spray down a room full of people with the Tommy gun. And I was like, yeah, that feels cool in like an appropriately like Scarfacey way.
Did they name the Tommy gun after Tommy Angelo?
Yeah, he was such a maestro with it. They sort of raised it to the rafters once his time had passed.
The Thompson Tommy Angelo submachine gun.
The Tommy Angelo edition.
Yeah.
Pre-order yours now.
The iconic Tommy Anderson Thompson submachine gun. Yeah.
Yeah, you knew who the tryhards were in World War II if they were carrying the Tommy Angelo edition across on shore at Normandy.
Oh, yeah, on shore at Normandy, you look over there. Oh, you got the deluxe edition then, huh?
I love that guy.
I love that
Tommy
guy.
Angelo, he's the
goat. That guy puts it to work.
But you go through this whole sequence. It looks great. It's like, okay, this is definitely like better. Like this is the game that you sort of imagined it to be maybe at the time. But then the end of the mission is, oh, Tommy, no, Joey got shot. We got to get him out of here. here, get in the back of the truck, and here's a machine gun. It has infinite ammo. Shoot the cops off us. And so you like have the sequence where you're driving around the truck and like, you know, machine gunning cop cars as they chase you down. And it's like, okay, this is a little tired. And then you're like, I am ready for the sequence to end because the tension is draining out. It doesn't live up to the shootout at night in the farm. It's not as good. And you're like, I'm ready for this to end. And it's like, what if 3 waves of cop cars? And I was like, I was hoping it would not be that, but okay, let's go. And then you're like desperate for it to end. And then you get a cutscene of a police armored car rolling up on you. And again, I'm thinking like, it's 1930. Like, how much armor could you put on a car before it was no longer capable of even chasing down a delivery truck, right? Like, it feels like the police were not going to win this race, but they do. And it's got a big, heavy machine gun.
Right.
And you got a submachine gun. And I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense, but also we're fucked, right? And Joey, who's like bleeding from his gut shot wound, he's like, shoot the turret when they're reloading. Which is my favorite scene in Godfather 2. You know, when they do in fact have to shoot the turret out on you know,
well, actually, that's the thing is, if Sonny had just shot the turret, that was at that toll booth, things would have gone different.
Yeah, you have to shoot out the turret. Once you've disabled the turret, you have to shoot out the armored like bars on the windshield of the cop car too.
Yeah,
and it's just like this was that game,
dude. But that stuff hasn't stopped. Like, I'm still pissed that Ghost of Tsushima also has a turret sequence in it. Like, why the fuck have we not moved past this as a touchstone? Anyway. And
they're not good. Here's the weird thing. I feel like when turret sequences first popped on the scene, they tended to be all right. They tended to, like, I remember, like, the turret sequences in, like, Medal of Honor, Allied Assault, or, like, Call of Duty. It's kind of fun. It's like, oh, shit, we got to get out of here. And you're, you know, shooting Kuba wagons full of Nazis. And, like, fine, it's cool. It's a cool chase. It feels like they've all gotten worse.
Are you sure it's that and not just like the thing where if you go back and eat the sort of candy you liked as a child, your teeth hurt now?
That might be it, but it also, I just have the suspicion that they've tried, like, in the process of trying to make these sequences more spectacular and maybe also feel a little bit like less inert from a gameplay standpoint, they've both gotten like fussier and like harder in ways.
Well, like Last of Us Part 2 like had that issue where they're rare, but there were a couple of chase sequences where it goes from a game where you're really supposed to be worrying about your ammo count and reloading and being careful to just cool. You can just unload, just whack that R2 button and just unload your bullets and spray them across the screen as it gets a little Uncharted-y in a way that, like, you know, doesn't really comport with, especially for how long it goes on. It's like, okay, cool. If you'd done this for maybe like 2 minutes, I could buy it. But when it goes on for 5-10 minutes, it's a little strange.
Yeah. But like, these are all like, that's the thing. Like, Mafia has all these recognizable, like, obvious issues, but also it has kind of goofy appeal where it's like, cool. Like, I do, in fact, love stepping out of, a car, checking the magazine on a Tommy gun, and walking into the night. Like, that sounds cool as hell. The game nails that. But then it also has just other video game bullshit. Yeah. And, you know, that made the transition.
Well, all right. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we can talk about things that are new instead of just the old stuff that's been sort of updated. That's not out yet, right? That's out later this fall. When is that?
That's a great question.
Okay. Great.
One might have expected them to look it up, but
September 25th says the internet. Says a quick search.
I hope the save rolls over, but it probably won't.
It probably won't. I hit that with something else this week, and I was like, "Fuck, it's fine. Let me just restart this thing. It's fine. It's fine." All right, let's take a quick break. All right, we are back. Kato, can you talk to me about Outriders? A game that I don't know that okay, so Outriders is People Can Fly, and when they first debuted Outriders, I felt like I'd made a wish, like a cursed wish, like I felt like a monkey paw girl.
Yeah.
Because my first impression was that it was Warframe, but with cover mechanics. And I had previously said foolishly, I'd play a Warframe I'm just boring. I just don't click with the Warframe combat, which seems like its own unique and cool thing. I've tried a half dozen times at this point. It just doesn't work for me. I would like the version just feels like Mass Effect. Just let me take cover and do some special abilities and I'll play that game. And then I saw Outriders, the reveal, which was that earlier this year? Or was that last year?
I think so.
Holy shit,
God,
that was this year.
Fuck was time?
That was apparently this year. And I was like, it was pre-COVID, so it's like a different year.
Yeah.
And I was like, this looks really drab. This doesn't look like it has any character. So now I'm curious, now that like people have played it, things have been less negative, but I'm curious how you feel about it. And also, if my impression was correct about what it is.
Drab, yeah. You know what? Hold on, let me just paste a quick cut.
Oh, no. You got a screenshot here?
I got a screenshot here of part of this game.
Yeah, which, okay. Listen, that's... gray and brown
trench warfare.
Destiny does World War One.
It's the weirdest thing.
Okay, I'm in.
So this is the end of my hands-on time. I played like 3 hours or something of this game, and it was specifically about like they're like revealing one of the like last classes, the Technomancer. So this is like third person. What if instead of think of The Division basically, and you've got an idea of what's going on, except instead of obviously like militech, like high tech stuff, you have like magical abilities.
But although still guns and
yes, the guns kind of feel very similar actually, and also the Technomancer, which was the class that they were showcasing at this hands-on, does have 3 different turrets that they can place, so not that different necessarily, I guess. But
yeah, that's a Division agent.
That's a Division, yeah, but yeah, I just like the world itself and what we were kind of fighting. Like it all is very kind of drab in a way that you don't. I mean. Right, there's like a cataclysm that gives people magical powers. I expect things to be a little more interesting looking. I don't know. It just didn't sit great with me because it felt okay, but like the Division had kind of a lot of control in the way it set up its encounters, given that it had this kind of urban landscape where they could like make different choke points and stuff, and like you would move from outside of buildings to into buildings, and there would be interesting kind of dynamics built into that. Something about the way that the encounters in this Outriders hands-on were set up, it felt like there was always too much space and never enough cover for a cover shooter. It was really odd. It didn't help that I was also playing with, like all demos now have to be remote. So you're using this.
They did. Well, so this was not a build. They didn't send you a build. You did a stream. You did a
parsec or whatever it's called. And so everything was kind of like muddy because you're getting a video encoded sending over to you. And I thought, I wonder how much of this is being muddied by just the way that I'm playing it. And then they sent over capture footage of the machine that was sending it. I'm watching through it, and I'm like, wow, no, this game is just so muddied and difficult to kind of make out the the enemies, and there's reticles in here that are like, I was using a sniper rifle that had a scope where the markings on the scope were all like brown. Like
what?
I couldn't.
That's the opposite of what you want. You want a reticle to stand out from the background.
Right, exactly.
Not just a camouflaged reticle.
I feel like that specific thing like kind of exemplifies the like design, the visual design of this game. It's just like hard to tell things apart, and that kind of makes it it like made it really difficult to even tell a lot of times, like, oh, where am I getting shot from? Like what, right. Where am I in danger? Like where are the threats? The minimap wasn't very helpful either. Like there was just like a lot of confusion, and it added to that is the fact that there's a bunch of magical effects going off. Like you have all these magical powers that create lots of explosions and things, and so do the enemies. At least that part was interesting, where you're kind of fighting against other people of like the same. They're called. I mean,
they're called Outriders. What are they?
Yeah, but like I think there was another Altered. Sorry. Altered is like just a person who has magical powers, and I think Outriders is a specific type of mercenary of those people. But anyways, you're fighting other Altered, and that part was kind of interesting, except it was hard to kind of tell what was happening, and all of those Altered always had way too much health. I was playing, it was a multiplayer session with 2 other people. And I remember one fight taking like 10 minutes against just this one dude. And
that was a boss, presumably, or
no, it was a mini boss. It was in the middle of this fucking level. And it wasn't that we were getting caught out and people were going down, so there was never enough damage on the boss or anything like that. We were up the whole time, just kind of laying into this guy with everything we had, and it's just like that's just how long it took. It has that. People complained about how, and maybe this is because of the setting in the Division, how kind of bullet spongy some of the enemies felt. This is worse. A lot of the ads are pretty like fine or whatever, a lot of the kind of smaller enemies, but anytime like a special enemy with powers shows up, like you're gonna be there a few minutes just fighting that one person. And it's entirely possible that we were missing some sort of mechanic. They've mentioned it now that they were kind of understaffed for this event and had no one there to explain if there were any sort of special like mechanics that we should pay attention to, as far as like, because this was putting us like, a few hours into the game. There were no tutorials at all. We were kind of just thrown into a mission. But as far as I could tell, we weren't doing anything that was making these fights longer. They're just that long. So it ended up being like 2 hours of just like, it was a 2 or 3 hours of like a real slog through all these things. And then at the end of it, I sent this screenshot of just like, a weird World War I section where these trenches didn't do anything. Like people, there was no sense of like 2 armies kind of like held up, the way that like you kind of assume for trench warfare, and a few people like spilling out into like no man's land every once in a while. It was just like there were enemies everywhere. This was like an open map where like you could get surrounded from any side, and it didn't really like do anything with the idea of like we've set up a line here. I don't know. Like it just ended up it feels sluggish. It feels like the enemies have too much health. It feels like they weren't doing anything particularly interesting with any of the abilities, and I don't know. Like people keep trying to, huh?
I said you sound pretty negative.
Yeah, I did not like it, and like I was hoping, because like I enjoyed the Division 1 a lot. Didn't really get into the Division 2 as much, but That's only because Destiny was good at the time. And so I was like, ready for another third person, this kind of take on the third person take on like the Destiny model, I guess. But I don't think I'm gonna like really check this game out, because
did you get a sense of the progression model at all? Because my understanding is, in fact, it is not a games as service game. It's not a live game in the way that like Destiny or Warframe are actually. I don't know if you saw leveling or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a skill tree. There's weapons with numbers on them, and the numbers go up. So I assumed it was. Are you sure?
They're out there being like, this is not a live game. This is not games as service. Which you're getting a complete product out the box, and who knows if that's them like playing with with terminology. Like, I'm so curious about that as a contested space because of the way in which, and Patrick, you and I were just talking about this, the way in which the world has turned on games as service,
right?
Like the ways in which
I don't know if they've turned. I just think it is in a similar way that a thing like a microtransaction, the term itself, gets people to go, and so games that would otherwise be classified under that umbrella, I do feel like publishers and marketing teams are trying to even if you tick down a list to be like, that sounds like a games as a service. If you say, well, it's not. You know what I mean? Like, how do you know till the game's out and you can sort of figure out what it is?
Guess,
and what does that mean anyway?
I guess
like, patches are a service. A game that gets updated later is like, what does that even? What does it mean anyway to be a service?
Right. Well, it just mechanically has a lot of the RPG elements that you expect from those specific type of games, of leveling and like gear having a score on it and gear having perks on it. Like, that was one thing that I did think was good, was there were interesting like gameplay affecting perks on guns. Like, I had a gun that would have like a 25% chance to slow an enemy, which was great to like deal. So it was really great for crowd control. And there were like interesting, like a one or two interesting ideas in that when there was a lot of like fun like freezing and movement abilities that like dealt with the kind of swarms of people, but like the second there was any like special epic enemy, all of that kind of like grinded to a halt, because they would also resist your abilities, which was just the worst fucking feeling of like, I have this gun that slows people like one every 4 shots, and then the 4th shot hit and it's like ability resisted. And I'm like, shit, like I'm not doing anything here. It feels like the enemy has too much health and is resisting all the things I throw at it. It's just like they've balanced it too far, and like this person is strong, and like they're just like the top tier of in this enemy group, not a boss, right? Like I would understand if this was like a special boss at the end of like the level or whatever. But they kept throwing them at us, and it was just not fun.
Having dug through a quote now, the thing they're basically saying is like, compare it more to Diablo, where there will be expansions down the line. There will be added content from what they are saying. Not that every week that they add 2 or 3 additional items or small things and they force you to do some activities to unlock other things. That's not our approach. You can think of it like the old school Diablo games, where you get a more or less finished product and then a big expansion from time to time that expands the whole game and the whole universe. And also like, no microtransactions, no whatever, but it is an online only game. It's just that you're going to get everything they've built when the game comes out. You will beat that game. You'll beat that game and put it aside. You will not play that game week to week indefinitely the way people currently play a Destiny, which is interesting given some of the conversation we had last week or on Monday about some live service games and the degree of which those are successful. Which, by the way, someone reached out and let me know I could share this from their time with EA. A developer reached out, which I've not vetted this quote. This is hearsay, obviously, but someone who spent some time at EA says that when they were at EA, what they learned basically was that FIFA's Ultimate Team annually pays for all of EA. Madden's Ultimate Team is all the profit, and anything else after that is a bonus. They aren't sure how Apex changes that, or how other stuff has changed, or like how after setting that as the model, how that then like, you know, filters out. But basically said the same thing about like the way Mass Effect 3 multiplayer worked, which we knew that was very successful. People have been on quote about Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. But yeah, that it spoke basically to Kato, your point last Monday, which was like, this is not about, it's not that it's a big success. It's that it adds longevity and adds income at a lower cost than what you might think it is. Like there's such a big spike in it from microtransactions. So yeah, Outriders, no microtransactions, not going to be one of those games. It does not necessarily sound from hearing you talk about it like it could sustain it anyway. So we'll see. That's out. That is out this year still, I believe. So I'm still kind of curious about it. Though also that's like a December release, which is classic slip to late Q1 shit. So we'll see. Patrick, you played a couple games that we should shout out before we start wrapping up.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to unpack Tell Me Why too much. We're getting towards the end of where I can stick around in this podcast, and
sure.
I don't want to Tell Me Why has a lot going on, and I don't want to give that game.
We should give that a full
short shrift. So we might want to wait until next week for me to unpack more. I would mostly just point people to the excellent review that Adia wrote for us that just went live literally as we're talking about this. But Tell Me Why is the folks who aren't familiar, the new game from Don't Nod. It has gotten a lot of attention because they've made it kind of a marketing point to be that it's the quote unquote first game to have a trans character as one of the central protagonists.
At least one of like the first. It's tough because like, are they AAA? Well, it isn't. It's just one of the first ones that's being sold as a big product with.
It's part of the market. I mean, like, you know, that's
one of the claims
you could quit. You know, I think there's rightful reasons to quibble over like what they're trying, like what they're trying to make claim to, but it is, you know, easily one of the most, front and center. Public big games to have a trans character at the center of it. And the basic setup of Tell Me Why is that at the time, this brother and sister, there was a incident with their mother in which one of the characters kills their mother. And the game is about unpacking sort of like the unsaid why parents do what they do. Why do they parent the way they parent? The Tell Me Why is the things left unsaid by parents when they're no longer around. And the sort of specific arc of this game is in regards to Tyler, the character who transitions after this incident. And basically, I want to spoil a little bit of the premise of the game because I think it's important to sort of distinguish. Is that initially it seems as though the framing of the game's arc is going to be, is this a parent who was not accepting of their child and what they were going through, and was this act of violence that occurred a result of this parent not wanting to accept what was going on with their child, and pretty quickly early on, the game dismisses that and that it's not, or it appears to not be. I've only played the first of 3 episodes, and actually, it's if my parent wasn't rejecting my transness, then why did they act the way they did? And it's about these siblings trying to unpack that, coming back to their home and their town, sort of 10 years after this event, and trying to figure out what happened and why it happened. There, of course, it's being adjacent of Life is Strange. There are supernatural elements. The siblings can. I don't think it takes place in the Life is Strange universe because this is published by Microsoft. Maybe this will be I don't know if this is a From situation where there'll be like quiet nods to just sort of like as an Easter egg to fans. I haven't noticed anything yet, but the siblings can speak to each other psychically. They also have the ability to observe sort of like memories that they can then not interact with, but they can sort of observe a moment that occurred between the two of them in the environment. And then one of the mechanics is that you can sort of like choose what is the canonical memory, like where the siblings will have viewed something differently or had a different interpretation of events.
Huh.
It's interesting. In the first episode, I don't know that it justifies the it actually feels like this would have been a stronger story without any of the supernatural elements, and it was just two characters wrestling with the specific question they have about the central parent in their life, and that the supernatural elements are just a way with so many games struggle with, which is how do you do a sort of like, storytelling across different timelines. Like it's really just, I think as Dia puts it, I think in their review, it's just another way of doing like notes or voice memos that are left behind. It's just the memory. They try to pitch the memories as these are things that are really important. Well, then it turns out like a lot of these memories seem really innocuous, and maybe innocuous things can be important in the tapestry of our memories and what we, how we process emotions and trauma. But it doesn't always seem to be the case. It just seems like sometimes it's just color for the characters and their lives. And so I'm increasingly of the fact that I don't know that I like the stories that Don't Nod is trying to tell. I don't know that they always need to rely on a supernatural trope to accomplish it, or really a mechanic, but it's becoming tropey this many times into Life is Strange. So, this sort of like a specific approach to storytelling that was started with Life is Strange and continues with Tell Me Why. So, I don't know. I'm mixed on it. I like the characters quite a bit, but I just don't know how I feel about its characterization quite yet. Like the way the game sort of sets itself up is there's not a lot of table setting. It's just sort of like starts with them in the home and then tries to fill in the characterization, the background, the color of these characters through the psychicness and these memories, and also the fact that they're in the old home, which means you can kind of look at a bunch of things that are on the wall. And I don't know. I don't know that it's, I think it like ends up doing the characters sort of a disservice where there would have been better time spent setting up these characters a little bit differently. So
yeah, I'm excited to read Dia's review. It seems hefty. It seems like a classic Dia joint. So
yeah, I would like to be like a quick summarization of Dia's thoughts in the game is that on one hand, it's not a game that from Dia's mind, at least what I can tell from the first episode, isn't something centered in like trans trauma, but in actuality swings in a different direction that comes across as maybe a bunch of people very worried about what it would be like to tell a story that had rough edges, and instead becomes some ways like a progressive checklist of like, how do we do safe storytelling? So I think one of Dia's most interesting points is about the question of like, well, when we want other people to tell stories, what are we actually asking for? And if the result of that is a game that feels like, no, of course there's not going to be like physical confrontations with someone who is trans in a small town where you would probably expect that it's not necessarily the most progressive place to live. What does that mean for the when we're asking for representation? I think Dia explores that question really interestingly, while also acknowledging, and I think this will probably be true, that a lot of people will react really strongly to a lot of Tell Me Why, in the same way that people reacted really strongly to Life is Strange, despite Life is Strange having all sorts of problematic elements in terms of like how it chose to engage with queerness. And I think that's, in some ways, that is like what Don't Nod is doing. Like, I think that is part and parcel. I think they're like more, they're thinking through that. I think a lot of Life is Strange came across as accidental, stumbling into something. And Tell Me Why feels a lot more thoughtful. But like, what does it mean? Like, what does that mean to be thoughtful is, I think, sort of a interesting marker in the arc of games trying to include more stories. It's like, well, what are the stories that they're telling and why are they telling them? I think is an interesting question. So I'm interested to see more of how it explores it in the subsequent. Dia played all 3 episodes. The episodes are coming out weekly in response to a criticism of Life is Strange and Life is Strange 2, where the episodes Life is Strange 2, like that game took place over a year. Yeah. It was way too long. It was brutal for a game that I think is much better than it got credit for, because a lot of people fell off because it didn't have the main characters from the original game. But Tell Me Why is 3 episodes. They come out weekly. They're done. The reviewers got to play the whole arc. I think it's a much smarter way to roll this stuff out from a sort of a player perspective. Whereas I'm going to try and play them week to week and try to experience the story as folks are going to be getting the episodes over the next nearly a month.
All right. Well, we'll see how people respond to it. I suspect that you're right, that a lot of folks will respond really positively just by being able to see the representation that they've been looking for in a way that does not fall into any of the pitfalls that they are worried about.
It's a different set of pitfalls, right? It's like when something swings the other direction from like a Deadly Premonition 2 to be like, okay, they tried to do, it appears a game that tried to do the work, but then it's like, this tiny little Alaskan town is like progressive city. And it's just like, well, this doesn't.
It's not just that, though. I think there's also an element, like in Dia's review, I think the other argument is that there is so much caution around like navigating the potential issues around the representation that's happening in the story that it creates a pretty dramatically inert story is the problem. Like this becomes a story that is so cautious around its characters and handling not just the issues that its characters are dealing with, but also just its characters, handles them with such care that you end up with a very well-meaning story. But the impression I got, like, reading Dia's review is that ultimately there's not a lot of like stakes to it, for all that setup sounds really heavy.
Yeah.
The impression I got from Dia is that like the tension just keeps bleeding out of the story because at every turn it's like kind of rushing to reassure that like we're handling this responsibly. None of the bad things you're worried about happening are going to happen, but also it doesn't then have really convincing other sources of tension in the story, which I think,
because like they're like every like almost Tyler, the character who transitioned, they're coming back to the town for the first time in 10 years. Their sister.
Or his sister, right?
His sister, yes.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know if they've like listed the exact pronouns. I always just default to there sometimes just so I can.
This is one of those cases where it's probably very important to get it right on he him given that he's a trans man, right?
Yes, and like one of the what happens over and over is Tyler asserting that masculinity. Like for example, one of the early encounters you have is with this character who has been sort of like overseeing your house while your sister has not really been there, and you've been away at I believe a juvenile facility as a result of the actions that occurred that night. And this character is clearly supposed to represent like he's been drinking, like it's clear, like this is gonna be like this burly a backwater dude with a beard and a belly, like this is gonna be the one, and that's like gonna be the shitbag that is like the stand-in for like a bunch of folks not accepting Tyler. Like every character you encounter, because you're coming back for the first time, there is like a brief moment where they're like, and right, there's no dead naming, there's no shaming. Even even the drunkard at the end of the day is like basically like the game frames it so at the end of every Life is Strange episode, there's always you can see like the choices you made and how that was like sort of reflected by other players. And I believe Tell Me Why frames this encounter as like you earned Sam's respect. Because like the end of it is sort of like, well, even this drunkard, you know what, thinks you're a man too. And so that's like a little emblematic of like the world that it's playing in. And the thing is, I also see why a game ends up this way, because them choosing to go this path, there were a lot of red flags immediately the moment when they announced that they were even working within this world. So I'm not shocked to see it, end this way, or kind of end up in this sort of like playground that's working within. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious. It's almost more like it's curious to see like where does it go from here in terms of like capital R representation. Like where does Tell Me Why fit within a larger space of games like this? Does Tell Me Why give permission to like tell thornier stories, or is Tell Me Why representative of like, this is all you can basically expect from games of this scale?
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like it part of what makes Dia's claim or argument rather here, valid, or what grounds it, is the absence of many other stories that have trans protagonists in this medium, right? Like inside of especially AAA video games, where if that was not the case, then you would have the range of stories, some of which are thorny about it, some of which are just like, oh yeah, there are also trans characters here, and their transness doesn't even come up as a point of contention because that's not what we're doing here. That field is already covered by game XYZ. The way that at this point race and gender you could just have a character who is a woman in a game now without it being, it will be contested outside of the game very, very often. Well,
it's also not going to be marketed, right? Like the fact that like Tell Me Why has its transness marketed as a bullet point is both a quote unquote sign of progress, but also is reflective of, exactly Dia's point of like, Tell Me Why ends up being safe, and then so much gets put on its shoulders because of that is purely because it is the fact that it can claim a marketing point is itself, reflective of the lack of representation. So
definitely. And frankly, the other thing here is that like there's also, for me, when I'm telling stories with characters with marginalized identities, one of like the first things to think about is like, is there one character in this whole work that fits that identity, and what then have you put on that character's shoulders to be, whether you intend for that character to be a representation or not, to formally act as a stand-in, as a sort of synecdoche. I never pronounced that word right. Why do I always fuck up that word? You know what I'm talking about. A sort of like microcosm for all of that character's, class or category or identitarian category. There's like you see this a lot, I think, when you look at the history of film, in which, you have, I think a lot about the era of a film where you get the kind of black, white, not even buddy comedy, but predating that, the sort of race drama. The sort of like In the Heat of the Night, or God, what is the why am I blanking on the Sidney Poitier jailbreak film? What is the name of that film? Is that right?
No, it's not, but it's something like that.
The Defiant Ones. The Defiant Ones.
Wild Ones.
You end up having like, okay, well, this is what an idealized blackness is, or an acceptable blackness is, or you get the sort of like, and I'm speaking to this because this is my marginalization, right? You get that sort of like, oh, okay, this has now been gated in as what good representation looks like, and also what good blackness or good identity character looks like. And that is also limiting in the long term, and puts a demand on the back of the marginalized to either look like that thing or not look like that thing. There's a book that Deleuze and Guattari wrote about Kafka's work, called Towards a Minor Literature, in which they kind of outline this idea of Jewishness in European literature, and the ways in which, including like the stock Jewish character, ends up being part of a program that goes on and also critics reading Jewish writers and basically saying like, yes, Kafka, the preeminent Jewish writer, and what's that do to the cultural character of what Jewishness is supposed to be? That's really fascinating, and it kind of digs into the weight that both at the character and creator level you end up with this added burden that goes onto the back of any single example of this. And their takeaway is not, and that's why you should include more than one character of any given marginalized background. This is me now with contemporary concerns in mind suggesting that, but like, I wonder how much different this game ends up being if there are multiple trans characters there. If there are characters who, for whom their transness is a point where there are stakes, and there are characters for whom this is just not part of what the arc of their story is. I don't, and again, speaking to my own marginalizations, like I don't need every story about a bi man to make that make his bi-ness or his blackness be a point of stress or tension. But I also don't want the world of those. I don't want those elements of what it means to be those things to be erased or to be left behind in pursuit of safety. I don't only want stories about blackness right now that are hey, here is a black superhero, and their blackness does not show up outside of it's a color on this on their skin, and they happen to be black, and that's it. The end. There's no they don't interact with blackness as an American construct, or in the American construct at all. They don't have thoughts about police violence. They don't have thoughts about racism, about microaggressions. They don't experience these things. It doesn't come up. I want there to be, or rather, I don't want a world in which there are no stories that do that. I think I'm fine with there being examples of that happening. We're like, oh yeah, and also here's our kind of, our collection of characters who represent a bunch of different backgrounds. But I want there to be stories out there that are also engaging with what it means to be black in 2020, what it means to be bi in 2020, and like what the stereotypes are around that, and what people expect, and what the pressures are of that there. And I want those stories to happen alongside the pressures of being lonely, or the pressures of having high ambitions, or the pressures of being, having a tough family, alongside and integrated into all of that stuff, because that is what complete and real characterization is. It's not just like, and then this character's one issue is, all right, he's a trans man, and that means all of his issues are that. So it sounds like this game doesn't fall into that particular pitfall, at least, and instead is just, because it's avoiding the question of difficulty and violence and transphobia, it ends up feeling like it's not giving a complete picture of what the characterization is. But I guess my hope is long term what you end up with is a sort of quilt of stories that tell different types of stories around marginalization, and not just. Because at that point, the weight gets lifted from each of their shoulders, right? At that point, it's like, oh yes, there's a huge range of things to talk about.
Right, yeah, like it's fine to tell me why. It wants to say, like, this is actually a pretty safe story in which, like, this person has a happy ending and they learn about their mom.
Not
like,
every war
you know
story,
what, fine.
Not every war at this point, there are a million, movies about war. No one is like, that's not what war is like anymore, because they can go to other movies that better capture the feeling of war when they go see a Michael Bay summer blockbuster. Not that Michael Bay probably has never done an explicit war movie, but you know what I mean.
Pearl Harbor,
Pearl Harbor, yeah. Fuck that movie.
That's like a rare gap. I've seen most of his films.
I saw Pearl Harbor in the theaters.
Could have been more Michael Bay.
It could have been. Honestly, that's a long movie. I don't think that movie works super well. Anyway, yeah, that starts coming out this week. And then
it's out right now, the first episode, and then every week they'll be putting out the
weekly thing is interesting to me. I like that I like that. To me has always been the dream episodic model. Has been. Hey, some of my favorite. I want like streaming to bring that back for like not everything, but they're Watchmen, Game of Thrones. Like, there's been a lot of shows where like I like the weekly talk with your friends, and then they're all available there. So
I think we're gonna start seeing the big like release it all at once for the binge thing go away, just because that space in the conversation seems so important for things to catch.
Yeah, HBO just proves that over and over again. With
I think like Lovecraft County has like lasted in the conversation in a way I did not expect it to, because for months I thought that was going to be a binge drop, a Netflix drop. I didn't realize that was an HBO weekly. Yeah, and like that's working for it for sure.
Well, and just also it allows. I think it's really hurt Life is Strange 2. So like with this game, for it to be shorter and that means more people can participate in the conversation around the game, because like you always have people playing sort of around, sort of as it comes out, or they're going to wait till it's all out. It's just like a weird spot to be in. So I hope this is more in line with like I know the other Don't Nod game. I don't know when it's coming out. The game they were making with Namco.
What is that?
Was also going to be episodic, and then over the summer they announced actually we're just going to put it all in one package and release it. Okay. That game looked bad though, so
I remember thinking that. I don't remember what that game was, but I remember thinking.
I don't remember.
Twin Mirror.
Yeah.
Twin Mirror sounds like a Nintendo 64 game to me.
Sure.
It's out. You know what I mean? Like some weird action game that you
or no, that's Twin Mirror or like a or like a platformer where you play as a mirror.
Yeah, it could go either way. It totally could. God,
it's my favorite Paper Mario game.
Paper Mario and the miracle.
Paper
of the
Mario
Twin Mirror.
Twin Mirror sounds 100% like a unproduced sequel.
Totally. I quickly just want to say that I've been playing Windbound because that's out tomorrow or today if you're listening to this on the 28th, which is out on Switch and PS4, Xbox One, and it's everything. Windows. I've been playing on Windows. It is this is one of those games that you look at and you're like, oh yes, Breath of the Wild was very successful, wasn't it? Because you are exploring, and I mean this has like more boat stuff than Breath of the Wild. Obviously, it's a little more. You look at it and you think maybe a little more. Why am I blanking on the boat one? What's the boat one called? Boat Zelda.
Wind Waker.
Wind Waker. Thank you. But
Wind Waker. Windborn.
Windbound. You are playing a character who has like caught the how does this game start? You are in a fleet of ships with a bunch of people from your culture. You're like sort of a tribal culture who's waterfaring, seafaring, and there's a huge wave, and you get knocked off your boat. All your boats get broken up, and you wash ashore on an island. And you're exploring the island, and you find some magic shit. And quickly you realize you have to go collect other magic shit from other islands, which means building a boat and canoeing over to other places, and then eventually building a sail and a mast and building out your boat a little bit bigger and getting more resources. And the basic structure of this game is that there are like, at least for the first 3 or 4 sections that I've gone through, you come to on an island, and on that island are some resources. You gather those resources. You build stuff with those resources. You travel from that island to other islands nearby inside of a sort of circular map. And on those other islands, there are other resources and potentially a tower with a magical key, basically. It's like a stone, but like it unlocks a thing. You get 3 of those. You go to the big tower. You put the keys in, and then you advance to a segment that is like a straight ahead rush down some rapids on your boat. And while there, you see a big weird creature, and eventually you get to the end of that road. And actually, I guess maybe it starts. It's at the beginning of this linear path. You get like a mural based story drop. You get kind of like, you remember in Journey, the in between sections of Journey where you'd see just like, oh yes, and then these people do. It's that, but for your culture and the kraken or the jellyfish or whatever it is, like the big creature, and like slowly telling the story of what your culture's relationship was to that and to the sea and magic or technology or whatever. And as you go through, you unlock, new tools, both through crafting, but also through spending certain resources. So like my character has a bow that will never break. But I could also have had a bonus that let me like run faster or something. And by default, it's a run-based game where you can die and then you start that section over again, I believe. And you keep all your recipes and stuff, but you are not losing but you are losing anything you didn't have on you at the time. So anything you'd like kept in storage on your boat, you lose. Your boat you lose and have to rebuild. And I don't know that works, but there is an option that I haven't dug into yet that is like, just give me all my stuff. Don't make this a roguelike, please. Or don't make this, run based in that way. And it's just, I think it's a really pretty game. I think the movement is pretty good. I think that the look of all these places is really neat. And I'm starting to get into some stuff that's a little more fantastical and some creatures that have different like behaviors. I'm actually in a place now where I can actually fight things and not just run from them, and do some hunting to get extra stuff, to get like whatever, the big lizard gland that lets me make camouflage, special camo magic outfit that lets me sneak better or whatever. But it's not doing it for me. And I think part of it is that I don't want a big proc gen space to explore in this way. I want something handcrafted that pulls you through it because of really sharp design in terms of where things are located, what you can see from island to island. And then also it's just a chore to move around on the boat. As of like 3 or 4 sections in, there's no way to manipulate the weather the way that eventually you got in Wind Waker, or that you got, or I think earlier in the Wind Waker HD edition. And it never really feels like you can't just follow the wind to get to something interesting. You're in a pretty limited section of the map, or of a world. Like, the world is just this kind of nearby area, a circle of the ocean. And so, like, you have to get to the tower that you see in the distance, and the tower could be literally in a headwind. And so, like, all right, I guess I'm going to go all the way around. And I hope while I'm going all the way around that I don't get, like, a weird enemy crab on my deck that's going to start breaking my ship up. That's going to jump on from some reef, which happens. And that was kind of frustrating. And then I think the thing that broke me on it more, I talked about those kind of linear sections, right? The bits about, you get the story drop, and then you kind of go through this kind of tunnel. There is, in those sections, you get kind of the wildest physics. You get the stuff that's like, whoa, the waves are really going. And sometimes it's really cool because the waves are really going. And sometimes it's totally busted, and the uploads, or sorry, the uploads, I'm looking at my own video uploads right now. The physics just completely break in a way that, like, brings your ship to a halt, or like dumps you down into the water a little bit and pops you back up like you've gone on a trampoline. It just doesn't function the way you need it to in terms of, like, high quality ocean physics. Like, coming off of something like Sea of Thieves really raises like my demands a little bit. And it's a bummer, because when your ship breaks, your ship is broken. And, like, I don't want my ship to break. I want my ship to work, especially going into a new level. I've linked to you all a video here that you can just put on the background. We don't need to narrate this or anything, but you will see that that it goes kind of okay for a while, and then at a certain point things just break and it falls apart. The other thing is, I've definitely hit some pretty bad bugs. I hit a section where my character like dies at one point, and then it spawned me into a new world, except instead of spawning me into, like, an island, it missed the island, I guess, and it spawned me into just the ocean, in the, like, far away from the nearest island. And so I was just flailing with my stamina draining, and then I died. And then I loaded back in the ocean with my arms outstretched, T-posed, and I couldn't do anything. And then I tried to exit to a menu, and at that point it put a big black box over the screen, so I couldn't see anything or interact with anything. I had to, like, restart the entire game, and like, it's not the end of the world necessarily, but, like, the bugginess. Did you see my boat break? Was that you seeing my boat break?
No, yeah, right before your boat break.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah,
there it goes.
Yeah, it's and you'll see. Kata, there's probably like another 2 minutes in this video of me trying to go down this tunnel. I'm not going that far, but I've just completely lost control of this boat in what's supposed to be a high speed, fun, action segment. It just doesn't do it for me.
A cool flip here. Is
it a cool flip, or is it?
I mean, I think every flip is cool, so therefore I have to say cool flip. That's cool. But really, you just kind of roll on the surface of the water.
I did just kind of roll. You're right. God. Anyway, well, that's Windbound, and it is what it is, kind of. It's something I was, like, looking forward to all year a little bit. So it's one of those things. It's like, oh, I really wish I'd connected to this a little stronger, and oh well, I guess. Unfortunately. Anything else anyone want to shout out before we start to wrap things up here? All right, sounds like no. I think we've got enough questions and notes on the bad boss stuff and on the food stuff that we need to do a dedicated podcast for it. I think we have to, and I don't know when, because we got a lot on our plates, so to speak. Not meant to be a pun. But we've gotten so much that I just don't know what to do with it. So we've really hit a nerve. So I think sometime in the coming weeks, you can keep sending them. This is not me saying stop sending them, but
because they're good.
Because they're good.
At some point we need to round up.
But we need a roundup. We really do.
Yeah.
So
a ruination cast of bad boss stories and restaurant disasters.
And restaurant stories, please, absolutely. God. feel like shit. I just want idle thumbs back. All right. So if you have those, send them to gaming@vice.com and we will try to figure out when the hell to do this. God. All right. I'm brainstorming stuff in my own brain, which I shouldn't do while we're recording a podcast. That's not good podcasting. Again, gaming@vice.com is the address to send those to. We'll be back on Monday with more. Thank you to Bowen for the track Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. You can follow me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. You can follow Patrick at Patrick Klepek. He had to go because of being a dad and presumably a hard worker. Where can people find you, Kato?
At A_Kato_appears.
Rob.
At Rob Zachney.
Rob, it looks like something's taking your attention in a real way.
One of the boss emails.
Which one?
The
Patrick left. We can do whatever we want.
Email.
Sorry, which one? The what gone wrong one?
The drink. The
holiday party one?
gone wrong. Yeah.
You know, let's just do a dip in. Let's do a quick dip in. Nathan writes in and says, "Hey, Waypoint crew, sorry if this shouldn't be in questions. I thought y'all might still need to filter. We do. So still put questions in the subject. It helps. While I don't have a shitty rich boss story about sending an email to name his boat, I do have one about my old boss who used to always send an email about drinking alcohol during holiday parties. A little background, I joined up with the company as they were spinning up a production crew to make some training videos for car dealerships. The company was contracted out by one of the big three automotive companies. This company had no idea how to really do videos, so one of the heads of the company called up his friend, the boss, who in turn hired a bunch of 20-somethings to do the work part-time, as well as one actual industry professional to basically train us on the job. It was a really weird experience, to say the least, but we muddled through. The real weird thing is that our studio space was entirely removed from the company we were working for, less than 10 miles away, and this boss ran it as his own kingdom. All contact between the company and production was through him. Come December, the company wants to hold the party in our space. It's a big place because we had to store at least up to 3 cars at a time in there. So give us some paid time. The boss had all of us basically set up the studio for the company's party, which basically was moving our equipment. As people began to arrive from the company, we were basically told to hide upstairs by the boss, away from all the company people as they do their speeches and end-of-year awards and everything. Once they were done, after an hour or two, he had a single file walk down the stairs as people began to mingle.
This is the part that tripped me up. The hide upstairs.
The hide upstairs bit.
You filthy contractors.
You're not part of this company. You're not allowed here. It was ultimately fine. However, one coworker decided that this party was the party to get drunk at. He wasn't a great person. He hit on women on the crew. He seemed like he was in an unhappy relationship and in the mood to make bad decisions, I guess. While everyone else casually had a beer or two, this guy may have gone up to the bar table 4 or 5 times. He wasn't drunk, but he was tipsy enough to ask all of the women on the crew to dance. No one at the party was dancing. Eventually, the boss caught wind of it and dragged him outside and fired him on the spot. He then let the dude drive home in the middle of winter in Michigan drunk. He ended up making it home fine. The rest of the night went pretty fine, but my boss was fuming. I believe he sent out an email chiding the whole crew about the party afterwards. And then every holiday since then, my boss sends out an email to everyone in the crew saying, "You'll have 1 drink if you're smart, no drinks if you're smarter." At least until he got fired 2 years later after the holiday party where the person who hired him announced his retirement. And literally no one at the company was left who liked this guy. The party was the last I saw of him. He actually called me to come into work the 2nd week of January, and a day later, my new boss, who is much nicer, called me to tell me he was gone and I should still come in. I hope you've enjoyed this, and thanks for all the work you guys do. Love it when one person is clearly actively a problem, actively a pest, a harasser, and what happens is everyone else gets chided for it. Love to place the blame right where it belongs. Fuck off that guy.
Well, and also, if you're that concerned, take the booze out of the party, man.
Take the booze out, right.
If it's that much of a problem, just shut off the bar.
Yeah. Ugh, God. All right, I'm going to close all of these emails because if I don't, I'll just read them all.
I'm just going to read some more, yeah.
I'm just going to read them all, and that's a problem to me.
And that's how we end up with that libel suit.
That's how we end up with that libel suit.
Oh, man, we got a barn burner here. Just keep reading. It's like, wait, we shouldn't have said anything.
What I will say is I am very happy with people who are sending us images now. People are sending us pictures of their food in some of these emails. Some people are sending us links. I really also appreciate this person, Franklin, who sent us just a picture of their cat. This is great. Thank you.
Shout outs to Franklin's cat.
Shout out to Franklin's cat. All right, that's going to do it for us today. I hope everyone has a good weekend. It's been a rough week. I hope next week is better. The RNC will at least be over. So, that's one plus.
That's happening.
Yeah. So yeah, be safe this weekend. Solidarity to those who are in any number of the situations that we talked about at the top of the show, or in any other number of situations that we did not quickly summarize, because we know that it's hard for everyone out there right now, and ongoing. It was hard before the pandemic. It will be hard after. We have to keep working. And one of the ways that we can keep working is to stop working. And to that, I say, fuck capitalism. Go home. All right.
Wait, did we mention the strike?
Yeah, at the intro.
Why did my brain block that?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot if we mentioned COVID or not. I was like, did we? And
yeah.
You did, because you said this is already in the middle of COVID. But it is hard to keep track of the litany of
so much
atrocities.
Yeah, it's miserable.
So tomorrow's a big day. Getting my first gold belly delivery.
Oh wow, what are you getting?
So I'm starting at an easy difficulty. We'll just see how this goes. I ordered from Essa Bagel. You know Essa Bagel, Austin?
I think I know the logo, which is to say that means I must have been there once. Yes.
Yeah. So I had these. Seth Rosen brought them up to Boston from the last time he was in. I had these last year. Yeah. And even a day old,
they were still.
They were the greatest bagels I have ever tasted.
Yeah.
To the point. Now, admittedly, was I drunk off my ass in his dad's brownstone at 3 a.m? Yes. So take it with a grain of salt when I say I was almost brought to tears by the goodness of the bagel, but it was incredible. So we're gonna get fresh bagels delivered tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes. And then if that works out well, maybe we begin climbing the ladder of difficulty up to Philly cheesesteaks.
Please, that sounds like a great
journey. Because I cannot imagine a less shippable treat.
No, I feel like it goes bad. I feel like for me, it's I know the thing will be that then you assemble it and reheat it, but I just don't trust it.
Yeah, because so much is about the right amount of grease on the meat, the exact way the cheese melts into the filling. It's tough.
All right, time.is.
Yes. It is time.
It is time. 15. All right. Autos, Outriders, right? Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna move this over here. Read
right on cue. The minute we're about to start on the show, Mina starts growling and making little woof noises. So I prepared for this.
Okay.
Ooh, what's this, Mina?
Was it like a cigar?
It's a bully stick.
Oh, it's a bully stick. All right.